I came back into education, well, actually into school, after 38 years of doing broadcast video production. So I came to the industrial archaeology program with that in my skill set. And the first time I was at an excavation out in Utah, people were all around wanting to know what were we finding, what were we doing. And I was putting two and two together. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about this morning is going to be a general, but just give me a break, okay? We've arrived at a time when 96% of the children aged 1.5 to 4 years have used a digital device. And of that group, 75% of 4-year-olds have their own. Mobile devices are here. They're going to be used. They're going to be a part of our lives from now on. They're not going away. Cisco Systems, the internet people, conducted a test or a survey in 2016 wanting to find out what was going to happen with network size and capacity. And they've projected out 5 years. And what the public is going to be expecting. And let me give you a hint about that. They're going to be wanting AR, VR, and video. So keep that all in mind. How do I... This mouse isn't moving.
Let's see. What's the question? Yeah. This will it shows up here, but I guess it's not.
Well then maybe I just need to drag it over. There it is.
There it is. There.
Okay, it was over there. So anyway, those kids are, in 5 years, they're going to be fluent in how to use those in their lives and in their education. So this morning, what I want to look at is what the future marketing and that world is going to look like. I want to look at the digital the documentation technologies that we have. And then I want to map a strategy. And that strategy will keep our cultural resources that we're documenting, keep them vibrant and able to be found in the cloud. Now, before I go on, I'd like to just kind of poll, who do we have here? How many people here have, let's say, are professionals in laser scanning or photogrammetry, some sort of documentation? How many academics? A lot of you. How many hobbyists? No hobbyists. How many people are just interested in what we're talking about? Okay, good group. I'm going to be dividing this talk into 3 chunks. The first chunk is we're going to be talking about the future, a little bit about what Cisco had to say. Then I want to talk about the star of today, which is digitalization. You may have heard the term. We're going to kind of take this apart, and that's going to be kind of the fun part. And then before concluding, I'll have some time for question and answer, and I'd like to kind of get your ideas. And as a matter of fact, my professor said, well, good, you can get some things to plug into your thesis and maybe get it done this summer. So what will the thriving heritage site look like in the future? I see the parking lot as full of cars, that there are virtual reality experiences going on with 6K video screens, surround sound, these immersive environments. There are going to be people walking around out on the landscape with their mobile device. They're going to be looking at augmented reality enhancements to see what used to be there. I'm an industrial archaeologist and I love the industry, but a lot of those buildings are gone. I want to kind of see them that are up there. And then we're going to have children that are interacting with historic reenactors in real time on their smartphones. But how do we do that? Well, we have the technologies today to do all of those things. But we're going to need a community of preservation-minded individuals to make it happen. To create the heritage site of the future, we must think big and think ahead, like this guy. I've always loved this cartoon. There's always a little bit more about it, isn't there? Okay, so before we start digging, where do we dig and what is the big picture? We have documentation technologies that are capable of creating a 3D environment of our physical surroundings. We have the internet for sharing that data. And we have people who can use those technologies to create that content. So the combination of those three things let us rethink the management of our cultural resources. And, okay, the guys were just here at the Library of Congress. How many people have had any trouble finding the photo archives from the Library of Congress? Come on. You have to know it's there. So by the end of this talk, I'd like for you to think of two things. The first thing is, how can the work that you're doing, how can that be found by a high school kid working on a report? And the second thing I want to talk about is that I want you to think about being a member of not only a professional or academic community, but also a community of stakeholder groups that include the hobbyists, the volunteers, and even the people that are running the sounds and the system here today. So, how can heritage management compete with Facebook and Google? Do we need to? We may not be able to beat them, but we can do things to be found in the cloud. So what is the cloud? I'm talking about it's a metaphor for everything that's in the internet. But that's not only the Internet of Things, but that's also the content, the applications, and all the things that are competing for our time. By 2020, 20% of brands will abandon their mobile apps. 200 million consumers will shop in augmented reality. 30% of web browsing sessions will be done without a screen. And the average person will have more conversations with bots than their spouse. Audio-centric and screenless technologies will extend the web experience to driving, cooking, exercising, and socializing. Shoppers at IKEA can point the IKEA catalog app at a room and place furniture where they'd like it to go. And L'Oreal of Paris Makeup, the Genius application, will let customers try on makeup. In the next 5 years, 80% of all new cars in mature markets will have data connectivity. Online shopping will use contextualization algorithms to influence shopping decisions. And 20% of all activities individuals engage in will involve at least one of the top 7 digital giants, such as Google, Amazon, Facebook, and YouTube. Cisco Systems, the hardware company, projects that VR traffic will increase 11-fold, AR traffic 7-fold, and mobile video will generate more than 3/4 of mobile data traffic growth by 2021. As a note, mobile video data traffic, more than half of it was let me say, as a note, mobile video represented more than half of global mobile data traffic beginning in 2012. So what we've seen so far is that the digital giants are competing for our time. The digital devices are getting smarter and more a part of everyday lives, and businesses are adopting digital business models to add revenue and value for their customers. All right, that's enough background about what's happening with the market. I'm sure you're all pretty well familiar with that. So let's put that away and then tackle what can be done as Heritage can begin its transition to becoming a digital business. Here it is, digitalization. What is it? Well, to date, there's not a college degree in it. There's not a book written about it, or at least I couldn't find it. And in fact, there's much more considerable debate about what it isn't, or it's confused with digitization. Gartner Incorporated is a company that is a trendsetter in digitalization for business. And this is their definition of it up here. The use of digital technologies to change a business model and provide new revenue and value-producing opportunities. It's the process of moving to a digital business. Again, now think about it. Give me a moment. So let me give you an example of what this is. Here's some examples of companies that have broken from their mold of what they have done forever. We have UPS putting in 3D printers, Coca-Cola, vending machines where you can pick your own flavor, 3M stethoscopes that puts the recordings right in the patient's record, Amazon Dash buttons. I don't know if you've used those, but when you need some more of that Tide, you just push the button and it automatically orders it. All states using drones. They were just in Oklahoma after a tornado. They were using that for safely inspect storm damage. And then John Deere, the long line company, is moving into GPS, auto guidance, and even a little feature this farm site has that the machine in the field will contact the dealer and alert them that something is going on with this machine. So this is a good idea, but that seems a little far-fetched for what Heritage and Cultural Resources is about. But remember, we're thinking big and we're thinking ahead. So here is a theme. How are the pennies doing? Are they getting moved around? Did everybody get some? Okay, I still see some over there. This is a chunk of native copper from the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. And you can't, I can feel it, it rings. Being interested in industrial archaeology and mining and things, I want to keep that in mind. So, who else? I know there was one person in here was in San Francisco too. Anybody in the NCPT in San Francisco in 2012? Okay, I'm going to give a little story that I gave then, so these people haven't heard it. The seed for this talk was sown when I saw 3 generations of visitors come into a mine site. It was a tall building, bunch of machinery. The granddad, he looked around. The dad went over to the TV, and the kids were standing on the shaft cap texting. And right below them was over 9,200 foot, at that time when it was there, when it was operating, it was the deepest single shaft in the world, I think they claim it was. And so what I looked at was that phone. Look at that. Those kids are piddling around with that. They should be paying attention to this. But the problem was the site had lost their attention. So what we have to do is figure out a way to keep the kids' attention. And if it's going to be in that mobile device, then that's where we have to get the attention. So the chance is not to forbid use of cell phones, but to find a way to make them relevant. So digitalization. To do this, we need to borrow some things from digitalization and use them in the management of cultural resources. And there are three components. First thing you have to do is collect or identify, the assets. Second thing is collect them. And the third thing is to find a way to get those shared with the public. So using this copper from the mine as an example, just give you the overhead here. You identify the assets. So down in this hole, they'd already found a vein. They're in there mucking it out. Shovels, picks. They're starting to clear away the stuff to find the metal that they're going to dig. So the tools they're using, spades, shovels, ladder, and they're getting ready to actually form the shaft cap or the collar. Once you identify those assets, you have to collect them. And I've used this example here, which is another conversation piece. It's a locomotive powered by compressed air. It was in use at the Victoria mine. They were using air compressed by the Taylor air compressor. No moving parts, didn't cost a thing. To power this, to run the cars 2 miles back and forth to the mill. Come on. And then this loading dock represents a portal, a web portal or gateway. Here it's providing a facility to load the copper ore into the ship, but it's also unloading the coal that goes back to power the mines. So this is representing a two-way street, and that's what we need to keep up. When this process was going on, I would imagine that this mint was in the business of minting copper pennies. In my research, I looked at how the heritage was being presented on the internet. Here's just a sample of some conventional websites. Typical, there's a web page, a home page, there's navigation, probably a search bar, some links. They'll have a schedule of activities. Here's some things going on. You know the drill. On the other side, we have examples of a web portal. Get this in mind. These people don't have a particular thing. They're a brand. And in fact, if I will go over here, if I want to find what the ASCE has on their website, I have to type them in. I have to know about this. Like the Library of Congress and their pictures. Over here, these people find me. I don't go into Amazon. They have APIs that are finding out that I've typed that I'm looking for a battery charger someplace, and then that ad comes up. So in contrast to these businesses, however, Heritage has a different need. The heritage manager of a heritage site, it's an organic thing. It's growing. It's a living thing, rather than these people over here, because the heritage site is a member of that community. So what I want to do, I want to ask you some questions and see if I've gotten my point across yet. So we're going to just pick up some sort of you think of a heritage site. What's an asset? Give me an asset of something at some site you've worked at. If I'm going to build my thing, my heritage site, I'm looking for assets. What is one?
350-year-old hickory tree at Stratford Hall.
An old hickory tree. Okay, what else?
Bridge.
Bridge? Just throw them, just spit them out. I need some more, especially from the academics. What's an asset?
The intangible sense of being in that place.
That's an asset.
Experience.
What about the photographs? What about the documents that can be scanned? What about the people that can do that? What about the laser scans? Here's the problem. We're thinking about what we do. We're not thinking about what the people are doing. I'm being careful. Again, give me a break on this. I'm just being general. The assets are anything that can be contributing to the success of a heritage site. It's the intangible. It's the goodwill of the people that work there. It's the building that's along the highway that people see as they come by. Okay, so how are we going to collect those assets? This is a very important part of 3D digital documentation. I'm going to speed ahead. A video camera is a three-dimensional video documentation technology. It records sound, color, and motion. And there are millions of people who are doing that daily. Look at YouTube. We have consumers that are using 4K video, high definition, Bluetooth, all of that stuff to produce video content. They're out there. We have people that are flying UAVs around. We have photogrammetry, hobbyists. It's in the smartphone. Things that we didn't even have 5 years ago. So you have all of these technologies that can now start collecting this. So now what we have to do then is how are we going to collect them and put them into a business? Somebody has to manage that. There has to be a methodology of how are we going to do it? What are the standards? What are the legal issues of somebody that's now working on this? And then let me go back to the assets for a second. One of the things that I noticed was how easy it is to do. I did a field school in Colorado. 10 students did photogrammetry of their excavations. They were all right on. I had another person send me pictures from an archway, an Italian hall archway. I made a 3D model for them, sent it back. And then we're also going to be using that out at, Jason sent me some photos. We put it together in a model, and it's going to be the subject of one of our field sessions out here on Thursday, a full color 3D model of, or scale model of one of the burial vaults at St. Louis 2. So I've said enough. It's time for me to have any questions, answers, comments from all of you. Yes?
Tell us about the pennies. Tell us about the pennies. What are...
Wait a minute. No questions? Okay.
So I work at a state historic preservation office, specifically in Georgia. I'm trained traditionally as an archaeologist, but I also work in preservation. But my primary goal in my position at the Georgia SHPO is to do public outreach. And so one of the reasons that I'm here is that fortunately my office has been very kind to send me just because I have a general interest in this kind of thing. But I am kind of curious if there have been any major success stories or great case studies about public-facing offices that have incorporated these things into a public outreach effort.
I did not plant this lady in the audience. That's exactly my point. So what I'm looking at is doing that. So I would really like your feedback. You'll have our email addresses. I would like to hear from you if you have a project that's doing that. And actually, I am proposing one. And what it does, it evaluates how it all works. It sets up the methodology. That here's how you can import it, or how you can use it in your community, or your site, or whatever that is, your entity. Document it so that can be replicated to other people. And then also evaluate the effectiveness in what are the problems, does it work, and is there any financial benefit? Because I do believe that these products, the media products, can go back through a network and actually help fund the preservation by getting more people involved into it in the process. Any other questions before I move on? Yes.
There are a couple of comments.
Comment.
Well, first of all, when you talked about the child, and you talked about the fact that a person who is at a valuable site and not looking at it, I think that's a question that needs to be expanded more. Because why we want people to actually get more savvy with technology, and we want these heritage sites to get more savvy with it. I can give you an example of people going to the Parthenon. And literally, the Parthenon experience now is such that you know, I saw many visitors coming with a cover in front of their heads. And it's not a transparent one. It's not one where you're actually seeing the building, but it's one of the augmented reality aspect, where you're coming inside and you're walking through the whole sequence and of the Acropolis, and you're basically seeing it reconstructed in front of your eyes. And while that's great, I think, to have that, and I think it's also an intermediate situation where sooner it'll become much more fluid than what it is right now. There will be a time where we will be looking at places that are technology free. So smoking-free zones that we have created now will become Wi-Fi free zones at a later point, because the amount and the influence of technology on our lifestyle and the way we perceive things. If you're looking at the websites you gave here, they are making decisions about what we see and what we do not. And so it is, how much decision-making do you allow that to influence the other person is a critical question to be asked in such a situation. The other point was about the fact that you talked about, you know, change, or what would be an encompassing way of seeing digitalization, you know. And a thought I had, which I wanted to share, was possibly thinking about 3D world, the world of digital reality not being any more inside a 2D field, where you're seeing things in 2D, you're searching things in 2D, but you are making visual searches instead of word search. And those can transform, even if you don't know and you visually see it, you can explore so much more than when you give a word search to it. And it can tag a lot more information, including photographs and so on and so forth. So that could be an interesting field to look into.
I think if we, I don't know if you all heard this, but basically she's in agreement. As these things come from all these directions, they're bound to be molded into the right, into a good way or bad way. Now, to that end, William Cronin was speaking for the American Historical Association about the students that he had in his college class. And he was concerned, he said that if something can't be Googled, then effectively it doesn't exist. And that has stuck with me for a long time. Digital technologies give us an opportunity to rethink the way we've been conducting the heritage business. Everyone in this room has certain interests, talents, and skills. Think of a skyline of a city. You're each a building. You know, here's the Google building. Here's the laser scanner building. Here's the Chrysler building. And there's, between those buildings, there's streets and communication networks. But together, they're all a community. It's like Kansas City is a community you go for barbecue. Denver's for the Broncos, and New Orleans, you go there for jazz. So everybody had a chance to take some pennies? All right. The goal was to have all of you participate. And I would venture to guess that somebody maybe thought, if I take too many, then there won't be somebody or enough for somebody else. Or maybe somebody didn't want to take any at all. Maybe they didn't want to participate. But the fact was that there were enough pennies in that cup for all of us to go together and buy a cup of coffee at the Café du Monde. I see I have enough left over. So in closing, as this conference unfolds, expect to see how technologies are getting better and how we're understanding how they can be used better. And that's great. As you attend the sessions, keep the two thoughts in mind. Think big, that there are a whole lot of people out there who are as passionate about preserving our cultural resources as you. And think ahead about how your work can be found in the cloud. Thank you.